magazine general news story. Looks like we only have 2 submissions here, and one of them might look kind of familiar. Or both.
Oh, wow.
Oh, well, look at that.
Yeah, really.
Are these the, can you all tell, are these the, I guess we can read the information. If there is any, Julian and Lizzie.
Oh, is this a French edition? I thought it
Yeah,
would be.
this is.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
I
there
thought it
is
would
a
be-
description if you guys would like me to read it to you.
Yes, please.
Okay. Project description: on September 19th at 15:10 local time, start the most destructive volcanic eruption on Canary Islands history, with 7,000 people evacuated from their homes, 1,345 houses destroyed by lava flows, and thousands buried by volcano ashes. With all this going on, more than 800 scientists from all over the world, it was working against the clock to get as much data as they can. Cumbre Vieja volcano in La Palma, Canary Islands, is become in the most monitored eruption ever. Scientists take every data like a treasure. This is why some of them even risk their own lives walking over the volcanic slags, still red hot like the true astronauts in a hostile and faraway planet. End of caption.
Oh, and sorry, I meant to read the category description. So this is general news story, right? Magazine general news story. This is looking at the overall coverage of an individual news event or issue and can include as many pages as were part of this section or this story.
Would you all like to cycle through these or just head on to the next story?
Can you go through one more time?
And these aren't related to that documentary that came out last year, right?
I'm not sure. I don't think that was part of the submission. So I would say definitely take it in this context. Yeah.
So this is the second entry in the category.
All right, looks like that was the entirety of the first and second projects. It's too bad there aren't more submissions, to be honest, to look at. But were there any that you all want to look at a little closer or in a different way?
I feel good about starting to just discuss them if everyone's ready.
Okay.
Great.
Is Oriana here? I wasn't sure.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
she said she'd be right back.
Yeah.
We can hang on a beat to
Yeah,
discuss.
why don't we?
Sure.
I wouldn't mind seeing that second one again. While we're waiting.
Do you mean
I'm
the
sorry,
second project?
Second story, yeah,
Yeah.
thanks, thank you. It's interesting that this submission included the cover as part of it, and the first submission did not include the cover as part of it. But anyway,
Is there any rule around that, or is that just a choice they made?
Technically, there wasn't, the description for the contest is pretty broad. So it's coverage of an individual news event or issue, single or multiple pages. And we actually, I think some people had written in when submitting to ask, like, if it was coverage of like the pandemic, can it be like multiple spreads from multiple things? And we actually said that yes, it's a pretty broad interpretation, but that ultimately people are being judged on selection and sequencing and editing, and that you might even get dinged for including too much, if that makes sense. So that is what has led us here. Oh, and Emily, a note that we had talked about earlier that I should have mentioned is that there was a group of first round judges that culled a lot of these down to what's currently here, and like a certain cutoff point for the submissions. So that's just something to note, that these are sort of semi-finalists. But one thing that I'm kind of learning in the process is that maybe some of these sections, I think this one only had 2 submissions, but maybe some sections could have had a lower cutoff to include more, possibly. We'll see if I regret that for the categories that have like 12 of them for you to look at.
So Emily, you think that this category only received these 2 submissions, or that these were after the first round judges went through and culled?
Let me check.
Oh, no, I thought you had mentioned that. It doesn't matter.
I have the numbers actually, and
Okay.
this category, the mag picture editing team category these 2 only had 2 submissions. There's actually one category later, newspaper editing team under 100K, that only has 1 submission. And newspaper editor of the year under 100K only had 3 submissions. So for these 4 categories, I included everything that was submitted. And again, keep in mind, you don't have to, award all of the awards that are available to you. The rest of the categories, there were cutoffs to ensure that you all weren't looking at every single submission that was submitted, and those all have 5 or more to look at. Yeah,
Let that
and I
be
think it's
a-
also like a point to make about smaller newspapers and how few of them there are. Anyway, sorry, Shaminder, were you saying something?
No, I was just gonna say, let that be a lesson for the people watching, that you need to submit.
Yes, yes, it's
Yeah.
You might,
true.
yeah.
It's really true. So, I'll just say that in the first story, I was kind of surprised, even though I liked a lot of the individual images, I was kind of surprised that every single spread had a different design, which, did not kind of endear me to the story.
I felt the same.
Yeah, I just felt like it didn't have that sort of continuity or sense of a unified thread, going through. But it just...
I'm gonna wait to say more because I want to wait till it's back, but I totally hear what you're saying. I had the
Yeah.
same thought as I was looking at it.
Do we want to start by talking about that first one then, and sort of its merits and pitfalls?
Sure, that's great. If everybody's ready, that would be great.
Do we have, I think we had an iPhone join us. Is that someone on this?
Yeah, that's me. That's Emily.
Oh, great. Okay, cool.
I'm double fisting here. I've got you on my computer and on my phone because I'm having internet trouble. So
Stereo surround.
Yes.
yes,
right.
yes, yes.
Awesome. Well, as long as you can see and contribute.
Oh, I can
Is it
see and
available?
hear. And can you hear me okay?
Yeah,
Yes.
great.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Oh, heavenly. Thank you, Apple. Okay, great.
Wait, are they a sponsor? We should double check.
They're a sponsor of my desk at the moment.
Because we also like Google too, right, guys?
We could definitely have a spirited debate on that topic.
Whoever wants to sponsor the MPPA, that's who we like.
No sponsors for you all to be aware of, just the work that's in front of you. So yeah, Elizabeth shared your initial thoughts on this. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll echo Elizabeth. I felt the same way. I felt very just disjointed, and
Mhm.
I was really thrown off by the text just kind of being at the end there. Didn't feel integrated with the design at all. It felt like we got obsessed with the double trucks, and then we missed the harmony of a package, how it should work together. Like the text and the photos should play off each other. And yeah, this just didn't, just kind of went thud for me.
Yeah. Also, I'm never crazy about, well, maybe I shouldn't say this in such an outright way, but you know,
So
when
the
you,
photo on top of the photo.
well, yeah, to out
Yeah.
inset a photo like that, it just doesn't seem as respectful, but
Yeah,
anyway.
that photo actually. Okay, talking about that one in particular, I wish that photo wasn't there because the photo that's underneath is a strong photo.
I agree. I totally agree.
I just feel like, yeah, it's like that little one. I don't even understand the relationship between the two. Like, why are those two photos paired together?
Yeah, this design really doesn't allow the images to like breathe and for you to really consider them, especially in context to the story. Not that I can read French, but I don't know, it feels haphazard isn't the word, just not considered enough.
Do we have a translation or a caption for this spread?
We're judging the edit, right? This is like the editing choices and layout. Is that right?
Yeah, so something that I had shared off the top at the beginning was sort of like the guidelines along which we should all sort of coalesce around, which is that, yes, it's great photojournalism and storytelling through picture editing, which is inherently a collaborative process, and sort of something that's not ever completely done in isolation. And I think one for me to reread is that judges will consider design, layout, and innovative uses of technology, but will weigh most heavily on how the photos have been considered, sequenced, and presented.
Okay, cool.
So I think that is sort of up to you all to kind of, take your personal perspective on things, but I think that's a good kind of guiding light for things. We also, Emily, you had missed, we also kind of shared a little bit about what each photo editor kind of looks for when they think about photo editing, which was sort of fun. And maybe we could recap those after this category too, if you'd like, or you're welcome to share yours too.
Sure.
But yes,
I-
definitely focus on picture editing.
Got it.
Go ahead.
I mean, I do like a lot of the individual images, and I even like a lot of the individual spreads, other than the inset, but they just don't seem to go together as this one story.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I also feel like it could have been sequenced a little bit differently.
Yeah, I think the sequencing is super weird.
Yeah.
It's like they wanted to make a fashion story for the first 3 spreads and then decided that actually it was a journalism story for the last spread.
Yeah.
I don't mind the inset picture. That's kind of, I always feel like that seems like cool breaking the rules, but then it's got to happen more than once because it's a little odd to just break the rules once and otherwise have a completely traditional layout, I think. Also, I don't know if I would have opened with that image, but it's not.
Was
it's not
thinking the
about me.
same thing.
It's like,
Was thinking
of
the
all of
exact same
them,
thing.
I don't know if that was the strongest, but I mean, it's a shame because I think those photos are pretty striking, huh?
Yeah.
Can you
It's
speak a little
almost,
bit to, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna add on, like it's almost a little like less would have been more.
Yeah.
Like there's almost too much happening.
Yeah,
but-
you do get the sense that it's a little bit bloated, like someone wanted to put all of the images, but didn't really consider of this batch, not only what were technically the best, but the best to tell the story.
Yeah.
Because I feel like there are some things that are kind of like repeated that I don't
I was going to
necessarily
say
need
too.
to see.
Yeah, repetitive.
Yeah.
So,
Like, yeah, I think their suits are super cool.
yes, I agree.
They're so awesome. But I don't know how
Speaking
many
to-
times I need to see
I
that.
know. That's speaking to what Emily was saying about fashion. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's also interesting that the caption and the story is presented as like it's a mad rush of scientists to explore this amazing thing that never happens, right?
Mhm.
But we don't really get a sense of like the real science until that last spread with those 4
Yeah.
small pictures in sequence.
Yeah, it's hard to tell how much of the text is doing some heavy lifting here.
Mhm.
How many, because I don't speak the language. So I don't know if those early spreads, that text is helping move things along. Yeah.
Do you all feel like this should be considered for anything at all, or is it safe to nix it?
I would
Or
let
am
it go.
am I
No, I would
interrupting
let
the
it go.
conversation?
I would let it go,
Okay.
but if everyone else agrees.
Oh, wait, this is not the same as the National Geographic. This is not National Geographic. Sorry to be slow on the uptake here.
Yeah,
the-
no, I didn't
No, it
realize
is.
that either.
It
I
is,
didn't
it
realize
is.
that either. I thought
It
it
is,
was.
isn't it?
also.
I thought it
I
was
thought it
Matt.
was.
I thought it was a French edition, but honestly, I don't know.
I thought it
So,
was Match.
Let me look.
oh, is it Match? It probably says somewhere, right? So.
Yeah, I actually can't tell, to be honest.
But
But it is
that might
though-
be why the cover's not there then. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly. That would make sense if it's not the geographic.
Huh.
No.
So.
But it's the same volcano, the La Palma volcano, right?
I think so.
Oh, that's weird.
That might have just been a coincidence then.
What's the name of the photographer? Do we have that?
Arturo Rodriguez.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Well, now we're getting into like photo CSI.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta do some digging here. Hold on.
Right.
I'm okay with letting this one go. I'm not in love with it. I hate to say it, but it feels like a B2B kind of magazine. Like it's just throwing everything at the page and see what lands.
Can we look at the last spread? Maybe it'll say on the footers. What
Oh, yeah.
can you see what publication it is? Oh, it is Match. I think
It is
you're right.
Match.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
They have their
okay, great.
flag at the top.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But
Right.
he's
Wow.
a Nat Geo contributor, so that must have just been syndicated.
Yeah, I was also gonna say he did the
Huh.
photo for that cover you all
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
judged.
Huh.
So maybe it
So-
was, yeah.
That's funny then that the foreign edition didn't enter the story, right?
Yeah.
Just the cover.
Yeah.
Huh,
That
interesting.
would have been interesting to see if they had.
It would have been
yeah.
interesting to compare, yeah.
Yeah.
So, huh. Oh,
Now I
well.
got to go look for that issue because I'm really curious.
Yeah.
Okay, so sounds like we have a consensus on this, and why don't we move on to the next submission? This is such a wild coincidence that it's the same
I know it is.
ones we were looking at.
I mean, I think that's a beautiful opener, but
So good.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if it's because we're looking at these stories back to back, but I found myself enjoying this one a lot more.
Oh, me too.
It's got way more
Agreed, too.
variety, way more
Uh-huh.
interesting presentation.
Yep.
Yeah.
The
And I think
photos
the-
are striking.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the images are really strong. So,
I wish, God bless Nancy, but I wish she wasn't there.
I know.
I know,
That's,
me too.
It's the realities of the business.
Yeah.
But
that's the
Yeah.
only thing that's like really throwing me is it's so jarring
It is
Yeah.
so
being that
jarring.
big
But we
ad
we
there.
Color.
should consider
Yeah.
that though. I mean, that's
No,
that's
no,
the
no.
advertising department says too
Yeah.
bad, right?
Yeah.
But that's the advantage that Geographic always has in these things is they don't have as breaking up the stories, So. But like, I love this spread too, just seeing all the
Right.
faces, I feel like that really kind of unifies the spread, all those faces.
I also
Mhm.
really like the placement of the images, the way
agree.
it plays with negative space,
I agree.
using
Mhm,
the way the text is used throughout, I think is really, really smart.
mhm.
Well, it does that thing that a good sequence does, where every page keeps giving you new information and keeps the
Mhm.
story have this momentum that goes forward, right? Like you never feel like you're seeing the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I just looked at this and even without being able to read the captions, it just felt like this was the spread about kind of hardship and, the struggle. But
I feel like the layout really helps to elevate the photography, which is already really wonderful.
right, I
And so
agree.
varied too. I feel
Mhm.
like it could be easy to kind of one note hit this, but you can tell that the photographer really, really dug into every crevice and every viewpoint of what it looks like to immigrate and all that comes with it. So you really do feel a sense of movement in the story through each spread. So good.
I think this might be my favorite spread in the whole package.
Same.
You never see a
Sure.
triptych like that. Rarely.
No,
Mhm.
it's very unusual, I think. So I also felt like within the layout, there was enough variation that I wasn't bored, and yet there was enough cohesiveness, that several of
Yes.
the spreads definitely felt related, like they were from the same story.
Yep.
Mhm.
Now, just like the attention to sequencing is really, really evident in this spread. I think in a way that wasn't evident in the last story.
Mhm, mhm.
So good.
Well,
Yeah, this is my least favorite spread, but I think that as a whole, this is like a master work of photo editing.
Mhm.
But this feels a little lazy to me.
But I don't mind returning to a full page spread, echoing the opener.
Oh
Okay.
no, I like that. It's just that the
Uh-huh.
image, like I've seen the migration image of people on a boat, crowded on a
Mhm,
boat, feels
mhm.
like, oh, right, that's a picture that we see of migration
Right.
images, right? I
Mhm.
love the
then-
arm. I think the arm changes it.
Yeah.
I don't, I'm just being, now I'm picking it. I'm just nitpicking. But for me, my biggest issue with this story is how are they telling this story in a new way instead of the images that we've seen so often. And this is the one for me that feels a little too close to what I've seen in the past.
Yeah. I don't know. I think this is the image that, or rather, part of what I like about it is like we have seen this image, and typically it's so far removed from the idea that these immigrations and these migrations are typically being architected by events that are happening by a state or government. And so you're usually seeing people in distress in a boat, but you're not seeing why they're in distress. You're not seeing who is possibly causing the distress. So for me, if that arm wasn't there, I don't think I'd give it a second look because I've seen it so many times before. But that arm pointing really makes me consider what is actually occurring when people are migrating and immigrating in distress.
If you zoom back out to like the contact sheet and you look at the story from beginning to end, it's a story of a journey. Like it's a really chronological edit too.
Yeah.
And so then I think the question for me comes to, if the beginning of the journey is leaving a place, what is the end of that journey? Is it a boat arriving in Texas, or is there another ending?
Right. But that last image also does allude to the ending, right? Because migration has changed in that people are sent back. They
Mhm.
don't get off of the boat. And then they have to start that journey all over again until they finally do get off of the boat.
I'm curious, what do people think about the black and white?
I really
mean, do
like
you-
it, but
Mm.
I guess also partly because I see so much migration in color that it's, I mean, I know it's black and white too, but I like the black and white.
I like it. I always wonder about like that emotional quality of black and white. Like, how does it distance you from the story, or does it cast it in a different light? Or like, how do we interpret the story when it's like that?
Right. I feel like for me, looking at these in black and white as a viewer really forces me to consider the images in a way that maybe I wouldn't if I was distracted by color. And I think also too, this photographer pays really wonderful attention to shadow and light to help tell a story. And that's, I think, what I'm most attracted to in these images.
Yeah, that last image, I don't think it works in color.
Yeah,
That's kind of what prompted me to think of that.
I think you're right.
I mean, if you really want to nitpick, I wouldn't mind if the harshness on the arm or whatever that is, was a little bit toned down, so it wasn't quite so contrasty, but I
Mhm.
totally get that that's the reality of what, he was seeing at that moment.
Yeah.
There's a lot going right in this photo. I mean, we have to nitpick. That for me, that is the parts that we're gonna find issues with. But
Yeah.
overall, as a whole,
Yeah.
I actually really like this one.
I really liked it too. I just really responded to it. But-
Same.
I'd be curious, since we had talked about it in earnest, how do you all feel about the inclusion of that cover as part of this? Does it add, does it detract, does it do anything for you? We haven't really talked about it yet.
I really like it, in the context of seeing the whole thing. I just feel like it has much more value for me. I mean, I still have a little bit of the same reaction emotionally, but I just feel like, seeing it within the context, especially because of the scale that it gives to a person's face, just really, for me, it helps the whole package. But
Which, to recap for Emily, like earlier discussion evolved around the idea that it was a bit a bit expected,
yeah.
a little, possibly a little old fashioned.
Yeah, I thought it was old fashioned. That was just my gut reaction. But
Yeah. Well, who is she? I'm confused because this isn't a story about a single person, it appears. So who is she?
she's a migrant at a funeral, is what the caption said.
I think it was for her brother, right?
I believe so.
Or I can't
A close
read that
loved one.
caption. Yeah.
I mean, to me, if I saw this photograph, I'd say, okay, we're going to follow this single person's journey from, leaving home until whatever. But that photo essay doesn't appear to be about a single person's experience. I find that to be a little odd.
This for me is where I feel like that visual shorthand that I was talking about is actually successful, of like using someone or something as symbolic of a larger story. So the sense that I got when I saw the cover before seeing the rest of the story was this woman is meant to be symbolic of women who are migrating, unfortunately losing family as they're migrating from countries in turmoil to try to get somewhere safe to rebuild their lives. So I wasn't necessarily thinking that the story was going to be specifically about her. Also, the captioning helped contextualize that it was a story about mass migration. It just felt like an opportunity, I think, for the magazine to kind of foster some a sense of like closeness with the subjects.
I had the same reaction.
Do we have any caption information for like the opening spread in particular? I'm really curious how they open the story inside.
Let me look into that. Okay, so you're looking for which side again?
The opening spread of the story.
Okay, so as far as description goes for this whole set, they only have the caption that is lettered right above Exodus. So how mass migration and its ripple effects are upending lives across Latin America, a story in photographs. And then it says photographs by and insert photographer's name. And then they credit the photo editor as well as design.
Mm. Okay, so that's the only description we have. It's
Yeah,
just,
this is
okay,
that's all, everything that we have, I can see, and that is all that there is.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, nothing to be sorry about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so the
nothing to be sorry about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the photographer did the text too. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Was this, and this was shot for the, who's the photo editor? Was this shot for the,
I don't know if
Shot
I'm
for them,
allowed
I
to
imagine.
provide names.
oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry,
I
were you
don't
asking
think
me
you
that
are.
or- No.
I think what we like, the things that we do know or can assume is that like it was just published in this magazine. So I think like if it was shot for another one and repurposed for this or not, that's not
It doesn't matter.
really.
Okay.
It doesn't matter, yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. My computer's about to die. I just have to go get a power cord. I will be right back.
Okay.
Sorry.
This, no problem. I think this is also good information for me to know, like technically speaking, as we're looking at these, like how might be better ways for us to look at these together, like maybe like actually having the print product for the print categories could be useful, and maybe even being more more encouraging of people including context about their submissions where they're able, because that seems to be a big topic of conversation with this crew, which was really cool. I think like some other people might not have these same questions and might just consider what they're seeing in front of them. But I think that they're great conversations to have. And that's just one thing that I'm kind of noting.
I mean, if these are print, I'm kind of, that opener, that those people are right in the gutter. Same with the ending image, which looks great here.
It's a good
But
point.
if this,
Yeah.
if I was looking at this in a magazine, I mean, I guess it's the Washington Post magazine. It's pretty thin. It opens thin. So maybe it doesn't have any consequence. But
I think this is an
I'm kind of
important
shocked
question,
it's not
though.
off, it's not off center. But maybe it was done for submission. I don't know.
I think
It
this
looks
is an
like it's
important
in
question.
print. Yeah, that's a really
Yeah.
good point. It does look like it's in print. But I'm guessing, given the ad that we're seeing the ad, that looks like it's in print, right? So
That question, though, I think we should ask ourselves, though, if we're getting too lost in the weeds as well, because if we start doing forensics around what else was in the issue and who was the photo editor, is that really fair to everybody? I kind of feel like part of your submission is how do you talk about your work and how do you describe it and the information you provide. There is, the word is photojournalism, like there's a journalism half to the word as well.
mhm.
Yeah, I just was wondering if there was, if we knew if it was shot for the magazine, because then the photo editor is really part of that
No,
conversation.
I know that it wasn't
Yeah.
shot for the magazine.
Oh, it wasn't?
Because he's worked on this for years. So
Oh, okay.
I only know that because I was helping to redesign not redesign, re-edit the website for the Smith Fund, and he was a Smith Fund grantee.
Oh my God, that's so interesting. Okay, so this is like, this is a pickup. Okay, that's super interesting.
I
This
mean,
doesn't change my
I
appealing,
can't
but it's
say
just
a million
fascinating.
percent, I'm sure, that they didn't somehow become involved at some earlier stage, but
Right, yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's a project that he's been working on for a while. So.
okay, cool.
So how do we feel about, now that we're basically just deciding on this one, I do think we should focus in on like the photography and the editing mainly here. How do you all feel about assigning an award for this one?
I feel ready.
Same.
And I'd be happy to give it an award. I mean,
Same.
I really think that I totally am struck by what you said, Emily Kay, about the gutter running down the middle. I think that is really unfortunate, but I do really like this story.
Well, and thinking about the gutter though, like the post, like we said, it's a thinner magazine. It does lay flat when you open the
That's
spreads.
true.
The
That's
staples
true.
are not going to be going through their faces or anything. Like,
Mhm.
but again, should we be considering that? That's the
Yes.
other question we should ask.
No, that's a good point, Shminder.
Yeah,
The
I mean,
photographs are beautiful.
right. I leave it up to you all to sort of make the final conclusion, but in terms of guiding you to this, I do think that should all be part of the consideration, and the main consideration should be the photo editing process, sequencing, storytelling, selection.
I wouldn't mind going through it one more time, but honestly, I'd be happy to give this a first personally.
Same.
Thirded? Is that? I concur.
But it would be great to see it one more time, just to spread by spread. So.
Yeah, a large part of my appreciation of how good the work is comes from the sequencing and the layout for this.
Yeah.
Now there are
Even
some
if it is,
images that are big that you kind of get to fall into. That triptych at the end is just gorgeous.
Yeah.
It's laid out really beautifully. And it's really well considered how all of the elements are playing together.
Yeah, I think it would be unfair to discount the photo editor, even if it is a pickup. They still
Oh,
were
I
a
totally
collaborator.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Totally
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very, I'm struck at how old fashioned it is.
That's so funny because before you came on, we were talking about the cover, and I think that word came up as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it feels like classic in a way that makes me so nervous, you know?
But
Like you get some contemporary feeling from the pushing to the edge of the paper up on this triptych, and then that kind of off-center feeling of the layout. But I think it's like great classic photography and classic layout and classic editing, and that's kind of a wonderful thing to see.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I hadn't thought of it in that way. I mean, I see what you mean, and I like the fact that the design and the tone of the photography kind of work so well together, I think. But the fact that the two of the middle spreads are slightly off center, what Oriana was saying earlier about the negative space, that really helps make it a little more dynamic for me. And I guess the triptych at the end too, that it's not just another spread with 4 pictures on it, just enough variation that it doesn't feel disconnected kind of from the rest of the story. But I just love that opener. There's something about them coming toward us that just feels like I'm just so drawn in, like they're coming to me, and I don't know.
Well, I think
feel
there's
so
eye
immersed.
contact as well.
There is.
So that helps it.
Interesting. Huh.
It's funny. The eye contact is always one of those weird photo things that makes people uncomfortable, but it's done well. It works.
Do we have a consensus on the award?
First place.
I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
What about you, Emily?
Sure.
All righty.